Hello everyone, I'm Etienne GRANIER, in charge of the UDI EUDAMED project for Théa Laboratories. I regret not being able to be with you today, but funny coincidence, today I'm in a GMED audit and I'm the reference for UDI EUDAMED and its data integrity. So we decided to record this video to share our experience with you. Laboratoires Théa is indeed a family story since, as a young independent company 30 years old this year, it draws on the 150 years heritage of the Chibret family, specializing in ophthalmology, in all therapeutic classes of ophthalmology, which makes it the first laboratory on the European market. When the new MDR regulation was published, the company decided to create a group of MDR projects managed by the regulatory department. And in this MDR project, we formed an EUDAMED sub-project, which is led by the packaging service integrated into the supply chain logistics department. This is our architecture of project. Why in our company was this project managed by the packaging department? Well, first of all, because we work on two areas, which are, firstly, the updating of artworks and their industrialization with our manufacturing subcontractors. And secondly, this EUDAMED project brings us into the field of identification, which is managed by the packaging department. Then it was the packaging department which managed the implementation of drug sterilization for the Théa laboratory group in the past. And that's a big experience in implementing regulation with an impact on industrialization and database management. What's more, was a successful experience. Choose for medical device data, a problem with the point of view of the data emerged very quickly. An SKU not associated with the correct UDI will make incorrect artwork and the finished product impossible to identify in the delivery and distribution supply chains. How do you ensure that your data is accurate? We decided to structure the project in a relatively simple manner on three pillars, which correspond to three regulatory deadlines. May 2021, creation of an internal database at the manufacturer. May 2023, for the industrial implementation for our medical device class 2. And May 2025 or 2026 for the recording UDI data in EUDAMED. Uniqueness. This UDI data is complicated to manage, but also to create, because it's not only concatenated data from other internal company systems. It is also creating data such as UDI and basic UDI. This UDI, which can also be called GTIN 14, has a root in its structure, and EIN 13. This EIN is used as an identifier for all of our products, whether drugs, cosmetic, nutrition, and medical device. The creation of an EIN for an SKU must therefore not be a duplicate of a previous EIN created. Member of GS1 France for more than 20 years, the management of this uniqueness of EIN was answered for a long time with an Excel file. We all know the ease of use of an Excel file, but also its shortcomings in terms of data integrity, security, and protection. In recent years, we have been challenged by our authorities on the integrity of data, particularly for drugs, through the addition of the GAMP5 and the principle of ALCOA+. You will find them definition on page 7. It therefore becomes obvious to us that completing this Excel database with the attributes of medical device for EUDAMED meant finding an IT data management solution that respected the GAMP5 principle rather than an Excel sheet. Who can do the most of all our data, can also do the most for medical devices. In view of the upcoming requirement of data integrity for medical device from our authorities, each annual audit of our notified body challenges us a little more on this subject. Strategically, in terms of communication and presentation to our management, this was one of the first areas of work to sell the advice to purchase competent software. Here, the software via script checks the uniqueness of this EIN attribute. C is able to create unique UDI DI and basic UDI itself. The other question he asks ourselves is, what if we could find software that not only manages data, but offers a communication protocol with EUDAMED? We would kill two birds with one stone. Noted on page 9 and 10. I will show you the 4 possibilities for communicating with EUDAMED. Obviously, software for 2 lens costs less than 2 software for 1 lens. And then very clearly, this implies experience on the part of the publisher on these 2 aspects. A first experience that he will adeptly have obtained in the past in pharma by, for example, managing drug serialization. And the second experience obtained with the choice of a commercial strategy for the development of a qualified and quality protocol with the technical support from EUDAMED. Let's be realistic. Having participated by being one of the first customers to qualify a publisher protocol with EUDAMED, we know that the development time for a publisher for this EUDAMED protocol is not contained in months, but in years. We also the improvement and debugging of a certain number of things with EUDAMED, exchange of good processes. We therefore took advantage of its contractual obligation to advise both on technical aspects and on the current and future regulatory aspect. For example, what could be more satisfying than having a professional contact with whom to discuss whether or not this or that attribute will be mandatory in the EUDAMED project check. If therefore helped us to correct interpretation error on EUDAMED specifications. Exchange of good processes. We brought our needs and user interface requirements to him from our side. You will have understood how difficult is it to find the right publishing partner for ourselves and for our business. But be careful, there won't be many editors, and the first to decide will be the first served. The deadline is short. Our working method for this project consisted of imagining a process for managing product sheet before even starting to build a database. To avoid us going in this wrong direction and making bad choice, which would then be difficult to correct. So one of the graph on page 8, this is presented in a sequential numbered form, but these subjects were considered in parallel at the start to constitute an overall image of the process. Identify. We conduct the survey in 5 computer systems of the company to identify which attributes were necessary for our global database with this new software. As we don't speak the same language between different professions, sometimes with the same word meaning a different thing, we have formalized the definition of each attribute for each profession. This allowed us to make a correspondence matrix between each attribute and each definition for each system, and this is really an essential step to be able to understand each other. Concatenate. At the same time, by working with our editor and the EUDAMED specification, we identified which attributes were necessary for the EUDAMED project sheet, and we identified which systems were going to give us the value of these attributes to constitute our sheet. Govern. This is where we often touch a delicate point in businesses. Information is power. We must therefore ensure that everyone shares information and obtain transparency on this information. This requires access to software where we will be able to find attributes for our EUDAMED project sheet. Simple read access is sufficient, but access is required. This also touches on a problem of constructing data governance. Who owns the data? Who is the owner of the data? Who is the first owner of the data? Its creator? Can we trust this data? That is to say, how it is managed in the computer system in question. Has they given it to us? Are we coming to learn it? When can we come and pick it up? Where to place our point of truth? Is now the right time to integrate it into our own data management software? Should it be verified by the data owner in our data software? How is this data versioned in the initial computer system? Is control of the data from the initial system acceptable to us? If no, should we have a validation application function before entering the data in our software? And so on and so on. And then one of the important questions, who will operationally manage this project sheet data in the data management software? You have understood, with us, it's the packaging department, close to the supply chain, commercial services, regulatory services, and quality services. But we will have an important obligation, which is to respect the ALCOA plus principle. Return. Finally, at the end of our process, we asked ourselves the question, how are we going to push the data from medical device to EUDAMED? There are 4 possibilities for bringing data into EUDAMED. The first, or after creating an account in EUDAMED, you enter the data directly in EUDAMED, manually. This implies that you probably have an Excel file on your side with all the security issues of an Excel file. In addition, you don't have any application function for managing data validation in EUDAMED. It's not made for that. You don't have the possibility of making math modification in EUDAMED. This means that the math modification that you can make in your Excel file can never be reported directly as they are in EUDAMED. You will have to enter them by hand for each project sheet. Entering a project sheet in EUDAMED also takes some time. You will have no room for error, and you will be forced to go through a revision reason for each correction of an entry error. Finally, a change in the specificity of the project sheet by EUDAMED, you will have your project sheet redone manually. In short, it was an unseekable solution for our work volume and our search for data integrity management. Solution 2 always seemed very dangerous to us. It often tends to be presented by publisher as an easy, pragmatic, and interesting solution, when in fact it's extremely technically complicated. It first required the creation of an XML file, and you will find on page 10 what an XML file is. And then you will often find 2 proposals from the publisher. First, either to create and give us the XML file, and it's up to the manufacturer to push it into EUDAMED, which requires having internal IT resource and skills that must be maintained, backuped, and keep up to date, and great skills. Our IT department intelligently was not interested in the ID, of course. Second, either to create the XML file by the publisher and ensure its integration with EUDAMED, which in terms of feasibility remains to be proven and demonstrated by the publisher. To put it simply, we understood that managing XML file was as complicated as developing a machine-to-machine protocol. Except that, in this situation here, you do it for each sending of XML file, since it's not automatic, otherwise it would be an end-to-end protocol. Solution 3, it's a machine-to-machine protocol developed by the manufacturer and its IT team. It's therefore required having a capable IT department in the sense of being sized and very, very motivated to develop this protocol. It has a significant disadvantage, which is to require EUDAMED to validate its connection protocol by manufacturer. We understand here why EUDAMED doesn't wish to encourage this third possibility. Noted for our part, through an agreement with EUDAMED, we had to commit to using a publisher protocol and not our own protocol. But in fact, it was in line with our choice. We chose arrive at solution 4, which is the use of a protocol already developed and qualified by a publisher. You understand that this was our choice, since all technical development qualification and its documentation, monitoring of specification and future development are assumed by the publisher. It remained for us, it's one shot simply in quotation marks, the fact of the installation of the software. What will happen to us for 2025 and the following years? Two main points. The first, quite simple, consists of validating the governance imagine for the management of this product sheet with a test in a production environment on one or two product sheets. This means that if we have currently pushed our database into the EUDAMED test environment, we are choosing to delay the download of our UDI database in the production environment until the date of the deadline, early 2026. This allows us to possibly wait for a final specification from EUDAMED, which would change the structure of the product sheet. And this allows us to continue to reflect with the publisher on the structuring of a product sheet to push to EUDAMED. While knowing that, to date, with the validation of a flag, a sample flag, the database in ALCOA can be pushed into EUDAMED after a few tenths of minutes of synchronization. The second point is much more complicated. Ultimately, it consists of avoiding any human intervention of copying and pasting or recopying information between software in order to strictly respect the principle of data integrity. It therefore requires the development of APIs between softwares and above all, to have for our IT department and its data architect, a clear, global, transversal vision of the possible and desirable digital flows between these systems. In conclusion, the subject is complicated, the subject is technically complicated, the subject is humanly complicated because it's transversal, and yet it had to be presented in the simple way so that it was understandable and obtained everyone's support. And it's funny because it's actually mainly a subject of communication on several levels. Yes, data communication to EUDAMED, but also an overall of internal communication between services, communication in terms of internal data exchange, communication in terms of formalization with procedures and instructions. And if we talk about establishing communication and human communication, then you understand that our and your biggest enemy to obtain a result is time. So don't delay any longer for those who haven't started. Thank you for your attention.